just very elastic.
Oh, it's hot.
See, this is the kind of problem you get when you wear jumpers with elastic that's coming a bit apart. Lack of sleep and distraction. 10 otherwise unrelated things to do with the making of my house and other inventions. A piece I performed live in my sleep simultaneously in Philadelphia at 8:20 p.m. EST and Oxford, UK, 1:20 a.m. GMT. Give me a moment. When I was writing one of the drafts for My House and Other Inventions, a pterodactyl flew outside the window. It was obviously not a pterodactyl, we don't get them. It was a bird of some kind, but I couldn't judge the scale in any way because it was just flying up against the sky. So I was just trying to stare at it hard enough to calibrate the scale, but you can't really do that against the sky, so I stared at it and stared at it and stared at it until it flew behind some houses, and then that was the end of that. After the pterodactyl, I thought I'd defer the kettle. Often when I'm trying to procrastinate, I will defer the kettle, ever since that was some advice given to me by a good friend, Sandra, who once emailed me a list of possible things I could do for procrastination. We haven't actually got a kettle, we just have a saucepan. It's the same saucepan that we use every time to boil water, and it's the one that always gets furred, so we need to defer it. So we can tell it's the kettle. And then I phoned a friend of mine and I told him I had been procrastinating by deferring the kettle, and he said I was lucky because he hadn't thought of anything to procrastinate from yet. And then you go on those school trips when you're little. Sometimes you have to stay away overnight, which can be stressful depending on your age. And I went on one of these when I was very young, and a little girl in the same room as me started to cry because there was a spider on the floor. I was also scared of spiders, but I wasn't scared of spiders enough to cry, just scared enough to not help her. Okay? It's just one of my clients. But I think I wasn't the only person who was awake, because in the morning I was told by some of these other children that in the night I'd been sleep talking. And I hadn't just been sleep talking, I'd been having a sleep conversation with another child who was asleep at the same time. And I think maybe everybody was awake except for us too. And I would murmur something, and then she would murmur something, and then I would murmur something, and it would go back and forth, back and forth. And you couldn't understand what either of us were saying, apparently. But we must have been able to hear each other because we were having a conversation. So whatever she was saying must have made sense to me too. And what I was saying must have made sense to her, but they mustn't have made the same sense, obviously. But when I tell people that story, I feel a bit guilty, because It sounds like I've made it up, and it might not be true, but it is what I was told in the morning. So if I'm lying, it's not on purpose. And then there are two kinds of light you can get for when the sun's in the wrong place for you. One of them is just a normal light, but it's got a bright blue bulb, and it stops you from being just sad or actual sad, which is seasonal affective disorder, and that's when the sun is in the wrong place in the sky for you. These are some scissors. The other kind of light is like an alarm clock to help you get up in the morning, but it's the opposite of an alarm clock. It's like a calm, it's not alarming at all, it's a calm clock because it helps you. It, while you're asleep, starts to wake up before you, as though the whole sky is in the light and the sun comes out of it, and then it meets you halfway so that when it is light you open your eyes and then you can take over, and then when you're awake it can start resting, and then you swap over again, and the rest is history. I haven't had a proper night's sleep since my son was born. It doesn't really matter very much whether you're asleep or awake sometimes because you can't tell the difference, but it does matter when things like the kettle's boiling and you can't tell what the whistle's coming from. Of course I haven't got a kettle or a whistle, so that's just an example. This is a mole trap. But I don't know how you work it. I think you have to do something like that, but I've never used it. And I was playing Scrabble, and I had an 8-letter word, unlimpid, and it was going to go over a triple word score. And I had every letter except for the P. So I went to the freezer and I got a frozen pea out and I put it in the place of the P, and I won. Thank you.